Welcome back to Mastering MHA MBA. This is Chapter 10 of Managerial Accounting, Part 1 of 4, based on Managerial Accounting by Datar and Rajan from Pearson. This chapter covers the three things that quietly decide whether a company wins or loses: quality, inventory, and time. Part 1 is about quality, and specifically about putting a dollar figure on getting it wrong. 4 bolts. That is all it took. In January 2024, a door plug blew off a Boeing 737 MAX in flight because 4 retaining bolts were never reinstalled. Reinstalling them would have cost almost nothing. The failure has cost billions, and the bill is still growing. This part gives you the exact framework Boeing's accountants are using right now to count that damage, and that you will use to justify quality spending anywhere you work. Start with a distinction that sounds academic but drives everything. Quality of design asks whether the product, as designed, satisfies what customers actually want. Quality of conformance asks whether the product you actually built matches the design. A beautifully designed copier that jams is a conformance failure. A flawless copier nobody wants is a design failure. Managers need both, and the accountant's job is to make the cost of failing at either one visible instead of buried in overhead. The costs of quality framework sorts every quality-related dollar into 4 buckets. Prevention costs are spent stopping defects from ever existing. Think training, better design, supplier vetting. Appraisal costs are spent detecting which units do not conform. That is inspection and testing. Internal failure costs hit when you catch a defective product before it ships. Scrap, rework, downtime. External failure costs hit when the customer finds the defect. Warranty claims, recalls, lawsuits, and lost future business. Remember the order, because the further down the list a defect travels, the more expensive it gets. The textbook's running example is Photon, a copier maker with $300 million in revenue from 20,000 machines. Using the activity-based costing approach from earlier in the course, Photon traces every quality cost and finds the total is about $40 million. That is 13.3% of revenue. Here is the punchline. Before building the report, managers had no idea it was that high because quality costs hide inside overhead, warranty reserves, and customer service budgets across the whole value chain. A good COQ report has a second panel that most accounting systems never show: opportunity costs. When a customer has a bad experience and quietly buys from a competitor next time, no journal entry records it. Photon estimates the contribution margin it forgoes from lost sales, and that hidden number is bigger than several of the recorded categories combined. If you only count what the ledger captures, you will systematically underinvest in quality. The strategic move the framework points to is simple: shift spending up the chain. A dollar of prevention typically saves many dollars of failure cost downstream. World-class companies do not necessarily spend less on quality overall. They spend a much higher share on prevention and appraisal and far less on failure. The goal is not zero defects at any price. It is the lowest total cost of quality. Now let us stress test this framework against what has happened since the textbook was written. 4 cases: an aviation crisis, a software meltdown, and a new kind of recall. Watch how every one of them maps onto those 4 cost categories. The National Transportation Safety Board's final report on the door plug blamed Boeing's inadequate training, guidance, and oversight of its parts removal process. Classic skip prevention. The external failure bill was something no warranty reserve anticipated. Regulators capped 737 production at 38 jets per month for almost 2 years, and Alaska Airlines alone disclosed roughly $162 million in grounding impact, which Boeing matched in initial cash compensation. One missed prevention step, repriced by a regulator. 6 months after the incident, Boeing announced it would buy back Spirit Aerosystems, the supplier that builds the 737 fuselage, for about $4.7 billion in equity. The stated rationale was quality, aligning safety and quality management systems under one roof. Think about that in COQ terms. External failure costs grew so large that spending billions on vertical integration became the cheaper prevention strategy. External failure costs are not just for factories. In July 2024, One faulty CrowdStrike update crashed about 8.5 million Windows systems worldwide. The insurer Parametrics estimated $5.4 billion in direct losses for Fortune 500 companies, with healthcare hit hardest at nearly $2 billion. Worth noting for those of you headed into health administration. One skipped appraisal step, testing the update before release, and the failure costs landed mostly on customers. Delta later claimed over $500 million in losses, a number still being fought over in court. Now flip the economics. In December 2023, Tesla recalled over 2 million vehicles, essentially every car it had sold in the United States, after regulators found its driver monitoring insufficient. The remedy was a software update pushed over the air at near zero marginal cost. No dealers, no parts, no logistics. Software-defined products collapse the repair component of external failure cost. But be careful. Consumer reports argued the fix was inadequate, and the reputational and regulatory components of external failure do not disappear with a download. So now you can put a dollar figure on quality, but a COQ report only tells you how big the problem is, not where it lives or how to fix it. That takes a different toolkit. Control charts, Pareto diagrams, fishbone analysis, and the measures that catch a quality culture rotting from the inside. That is part 2. See you there.